Well, it looks like the one-year experiment of Graham Harrell as the offensive coordinator at West Virginia is officially over. Is the sky falling in Morgantown? And who might replace Graham Harrell as the next OC at West Virginia? I've got a few guys I want to mention. So pull up a chair, sit back, relax, and let's talk about it. What is up, college sports fans, fellow members of Mountaineer Nation? This is Couz. Welcome into another edition of Couz's Corner. So pull that chair up and let me serve you up this shot of top shelf college football content. On tap in this episode, that's right, we're talking about Graham Harrell and his apparent hiring as the offensive coordinator under Coach Ryan Walters at Purdue. What makes this even more ironic is Harrell will apparently be working side by side with new interim staff member at Purdue, Drew Brees, as it was also announced yesterday, December the 15th, that Drew Brees will be taking on an interim coaching role on the staff at Purdue. What that role is exactly, who knows? But it would give Graham Harrell a really cool experience to work alongside Drew, an NFL legend, and those two guys together could really, really do wonders for Coach Ryan Walters and that staff at Purdue. So, why did Graham Harrell leave West Virginia? We will probably never know the answer to that question. There's a lot of rumors floating around that I'm not going to speculate about. Did he and Neal Brown see eye to eye? I don't know. Was Neal Brown not letting him have full control of the offense? I don't know. But it is assumed that he will have full control of the offense at Purdue because Ryan Walters, the new head coach of Purdue, is a defensive guy. He came over from Illinois where he was the defensive coordinator for the Illini there. So more than likely he will give Graham Harrell complete 100% control of the offense. Now, maybe he had complete 100% control of the offense at West Virginia. I don't know that, whether he did or not. But just based on what we know about Neal Brown from the outside looking in and the fact that he's such a detail-oriented guy and seems like he likes to micromanage things a little bit, my guess is he probably did not give Graham full control, that he probably still had his hand in it quite a bit. But like I said, I don't know that for a fact. I was not in the room or in the building with those guys. Did his family just not like living in West Virginia? Maybe that's the case. Who knows? Maybe they wanted to go somewhere different. Were they, worried about the lame duck situation that Neal Brown could possibly be in? Because we all know when a head coach gets fired, his staff usually goes with him. Maybe they were concerned about that and figured like Purdue was a more long-term, stable job. And that's very possible too. We probably will never know the complete reason he left, but nonetheless, he's leaving. Now, does that mean the sky's falling in Morgantown? Well, apparently most of you think so because I've seen all kinds of comments on message boards, on Twitter. Man, some people think the West Virginia program's falling apart just because Graham Harrell left. Guys, I'm gonna be honest with you. I like Graham Harrell. Seems like a great guy, and he seems like a good football coach. But he did not overly impress during his 1 year stint here. We were only 5-7. Our offense was ranked 60th in the country in total offense, and we were tied for 53rd in the country in scoring offense. We didn't set the world on fire. We didn't set any records, and our offense didn't play good enough to win some games this year. There were a few games that West Virginia could have won had our offense played better, and it didn't happen. Iowa State game comes to mind off the top of my head, and that could have gotten us in a bowl game. So I'm not that concerned about it. I'll be honest with you. Like I said, no ill will towards Graham Harrell. He did his best here. It just didn't work. So it's time for him to move on. So I'm actually okay with this. I have no issue. I feel confident if they bring somebody else in, they'll make the right hire. I feel like new AD Rittenberg will probably assist Neal Brown in that process. Maybe he won't. Maybe he'll give Neal 100% control on who he hires. I don't know. But nonetheless, I have put together a list of guys who I think would be intriguing candidates for this job. Now, the first on this list, an obvious one, and the one everybody's talking about, and that's Seth Littrell. Seth Littrell was just recently fired as the head coach at North Texas, which ironically is where Ren Baker was the athletic director for several years. Seth Littrell's an air raid guy, just like Neal Brown, just like Graham Harrell. Matter of fact, Graham Harrell worked for Seth Littrell for 3 years before he went to be the OC at USC. He's a disciple of the Mike Leach coaching tree, just like Graham and just like Neal Brown. Before his time as head coach at North Texas, he was the offensive coordinator at Arizona, Indiana, and North Carolina, and he put together some really good offenses. As a matter of fact, you can make the argument that Seth Littrell was a better offensive coordinator than he was head coach. During his time at UNC under Coach Larry Fedora, he helped them set school records for most passing yards, most passing touchdowns, and most first downs. in the 2014 season. In 2013, as the offensive coordinator for the Indiana Hoosiers, Indiana was 9th in the country in total offense, averaging 508.5 yards per game. That's Indiana, folks. Indiana's not a blue blood program, and they were 9th in the country on offense. And during his time at Arizona during the 2011 season, Arizona was 15th in the nation in total offense, putting up 465.2 yards per game. So Seth Luttrell's kind of an obvious choice here, especially if Neal Brown wants to bring in a guy who's extremely familiar with the air raid system and somebody else who learned from Mike Leach. He would be probably the top guy on the list, in my opinion, if that's the case. And more than likely, I feel like Neal Brown will want to stick with that because that's what he knows and that's what he's comfortable with. Now, another guy on this list that I find intriguing and who has a connection to Neal Brown is Mark Whipple. Mark Whipple was the offensive coordinator at Pitt in 2021 when they won the ACC. He coached Jordan Addison to a Blitnikoff Award, coached Kenny Pickett to a high draft pick in the NFL. They ran a very high-power, potent offense at Pitt. He was the guy that made that whole thing click. He runs a pass-first spread type offense, not necessarily an air raid per se, but Neal Brown would probably be comfortable with Mark Whipple because he actually played for Mark Whipple. Mark Whipple was the head coach at UMass between 1998 and 2003. Well, Neal Brown played at UMass. He's a UMass alum. He played there in 2001 and 2002 under Mark Whipple. So there would be some familiarity there with that. Now, this past season, Mark Whipple was the offensive coordinator at Nebraska. Obviously, he's not the offensive coordinator there anymore because they're changing over to a brand new coaching staff with the hiring of Matt Rule there. Another interesting thing about Whipple, he also has NFL experience. He coached Ben Roethlisberger during his rookie years with the Steelers, that very successful season he had there. And he's also spent time with the Cleveland Browns. Now, a couple of other names that have some West Virginia ties on this list that I find intriguing, and I've also seen some people throw around on social media. Number one being Travis Trickett. Travis Trickett was just recently the OC at USF. Now, they did struggle this year, but it was his first year as a true play-calling offensive coordinator. Travis Trickett is a coaching superstar. He's one of the most respected assistant coaches in the country. He's an awesome recruiter, has brought in some great talent to West Virginia during his time here. As a matter of fact, he was on Neal Brown's staff until just this past season when he took that offensive coordinator job at USF. Could they bring Travis Trickett back and let him call plays for the Mountaineers? He's obviously familiar with Neal Brown and how he does things. He would be familiar with the air raid system. Could Travis Trickett come back? What about Travis's brother, Clint Trickett? Right now, Clint Trickett is the offensive coordinator for West Virginia's little brother, Marshall, under Coach Charles Huff. He got promoted to that spot in the 2022 season after spending 2021 season as the passing game coordinator. So he has experience calling plays, at least 1 year's worth of experience, and he's played in an air raid system under Dana Holgorsen here at West Virginia. So Clint Trickett is another air raid guy who could come in and call plays potentially for West Virginia. Now, neither of these guys have extensive experience as offensive coordinator, so it would be a little risky to bring those guys in. But nonetheless, they do have West Virginia ties and West Virginia connections, and we know West Virginia fans really love that. So that would probably mean a lot to the fan base. Another obvious choice that a lot of fans are talking about, I don't want to say obvious choice, but one that West Virginia fans are talking about is Pat White, former great quarterback here at West Virginia, arguably the greatest quarterback to ever lace them up for the old gold and blue. Now, he's not an air raid guy, but he is a spread read option guy. He could come in, he could coach Garrett Green up, teach him how to run that spread option that Rich Rod ran here at West Virginia. He's got experience. He's been working on the staff for the LA Chargers, so that would be very handy to have on staff somebody that's worked in the NFL. He has been a college coach. He's coached quarterbacks. I think he's coached running backs. I don't think he's ever been an actual play caller, so that might be a drawback. But hey, I know Mountaineer fans would be ecstatic if Pat White was roaming the sidelines as a coach for the Mountaineers. Another one, what if you promote from within? What if you promote Chad Scott, the running backs coach, who has been on Neal Brown's staff, not only here at West Virginia, but was with him at Troy, was with him at Kentucky, spent some time at Texas Tech. He and Chad Scott have coached a lot together. They're very comfortable with one another. And Chad Scott was the co-offensive coordinator for the first 3 seasons at West Virginia until he got promoted to run game coordinator this past season. So Chad Scott has experience, more than likely, of helping put together an offensive game plan as a co-offensive coordinator. Would he be trusted enough to call the plays 100% and have control of the offense? Who knows? But if there's one coach on this offensive staff, and I've been vocal about this on Twitter, if there's one coach on this offensive staff I would love to see stay with this program, it's Chad Scott. Scott's running backs have developed tremendously. They've improved every single year under his tutelage. And I think he's just an excellent coach. I think he's an excellent recruiter. And I would love to see Chad Scott get an opportunity to be the offensive coordinator for the Mountaineers. It would be a little risky because he's never held that position before. But if Neal Brown trusts him enough, he might just make that promotion from within. And you also keep continuity, some of the players are familiar with on the staff, and maybe help retain some guys that would leave in the portal otherwise. Now, some names that might be a little outside the box that you may not have thought about. The first one, Ken Niumatalolo, and I hope I said his last name right. Niumatalolo, I guess it would have been the former head coach for Navy. He was the head coach at Navy from 2007 through 2022, the winningest coach in the history of the Naval Academy. Had a record of 109 and 83, so really good success at Navy, but they struggled the last few years. So he got fired after their loss to Army last week. Actually got fired in the locker room, according to some reports. So he was fired in a controversial fashion. But Ken Niumatalolo is a triple option guy. If they go this route, they would have to get rid of the air raid offense and the spread offense and go to a triple option offense. Ken Niumatalolo learned under former Georgia Tech head coach Paul Johnson, who was also a triple option guy. Now, I'm not a fan of bringing in the triple option, but it is intriguing, and here's why. West Virginia has a loaded running back room. It might be one of the most talented position groups on the team. You've got Tony Mathis, Jalen Anderson, Justin Johnson, and C.J. Donaldson, assuming they all come back. What a talented group. You add in running quarterback Garrett Green. You add in quarterback Nico Marchiol, who can run the ball as well. Would this be a time to go to something different, like a triple option offense? It would be very interesting to watch, and something definitely new. It would be tough for other Big 12 teams to prepare for, and it might give West Virginia a bit of an advantage. But me personally, I think they're boring to watch. I want to watch a team that throws the football some. I'm not saying you got to throw it all the time like Mike Leach did, God rest his soul. But I do want to see a team throw the ball around the yard. I think it's fun to watch. And that's what I want to see. That's the kind of brand of football I like. I miss the Dana Holgorsen days when we threw the ball around the yard. We just never had a good enough defense under Dana to win the Big 12, but our offenses were good enough. That's what I'd like to see in Morgantown again. Somebody who throws the ball. It doesn't necessarily have to be the air raid, but at least throw the ball enough to keep teams off balance. Even when Pat White was our quarterback, we didn't run the ball. We didn't throw the ball a ton, but we threw it enough. But another thing that would concern me about the triple option is I don't know that somebody like Nico Marchiol would be excited about running a triple option, and he may decide to transfer. Now, Garrett Green could probably do it and be successful at it, but I think Nico's going to want to play on Sundays. Triple option quarterback is probably not going to be prepared to play in the NFL, and it might be tough to recruit talented quarterbacks unless you do run a triple option like something similar to what Coastal Carolina does. But that's not Ken Niumatalolo's style. He runs the traditional run-heavy triple option where they almost never pass the football. Now, last but not least, I have not heard anybody mention this, but it was intriguing to me. Now, he is an air raid guy, but I've not heard anybody mention him, and that's Hal Mumme. That's right, Hal Mumme, the guy who was the mentor, so to speak, to Mike Leach himself. Hal Mumme and Mike Leach came up together, developed the air raid system that we see today. What makes this intriguing? Well, Hal Mumme coached Neal Brown at Kentucky. They have a connection there. He coached Neal Brown for 1 to 2 years at Kentucky alongside Leach. Mumme was the head coach. Leach was the offensive coordinator at the time. Now, Mumme is 70 years old, but he's got extensive experience coaching at the college ranks. Like I said, he was head coach at Kentucky from 1997 through 2000. He coached Tim Couch, who became the #1 draft pick in the NFL. He was also head coach at Iowa Wesleyan, Valdosta State, Southeastern Louisiana, New Mexico State, McMurray, Belhaven University, and he's also served time on a lot of programs as offensive coordinator at SMU, UTEP, Jackson State, and even the Arlington Renegades of the XFL for a year. So Hal Mumme has extensive coaching experience. He's familiar with the college game. He's familiar with the air raid because he helped invent it. He's familiar with Neal Brown. And yes, he's 70, but why not? Think about this. If you're Neal Brown and you're coaching for your job, and say Hal Mumme may only be able to coach 1 or 2 years, who cares? Go out and hire Hal Mumme as your offensive coordinator. Say, Hal, I need your help, man. Come in here. Help me coach up this offense. help us score points again, help us be exciting to watch again, reinvigorate this fan base, and get our offense back to West Virginia offense, West Virginia high-powered football. Why not? It's worth a shot. Even if he's on here for a year or two, gets the team back on the winning track, gets the offense back on track, and then they can hand the reins over to somebody else, another incoming hotshot offensive coordinator. But you give them a nice base to land on, somewhere to start from, a nice foundation after bringing in somebody like a Hal Mumme who can teach the younger coaches. And, maybe Mumme would want to help out one of his former pupils in Neal Brown. Think about that. I think it's pretty interesting if you think about it. Now, the one drawback, Hal Mumme did have some legal issues earlier this year when he got arrested at a hotel. He and his wife got in some trouble at a hotel. I think they refused to leave or something because they didn't pay a bar tab or whatever. You can find the details online. I personally don't think it's that big a deal. People make mistakes. It's in the past. Let it go. Nobody was hurt in the incident. And he's not going to be the head coach. He's going to be the offensive coordinator. So I think you give him some leash there. But we do know that Gordon Gee is all about image, and image is important to him. That's one of the reasons he didn't like Dana Holgorsen, from what I've heard. So would he be willing to hire somebody like a Hal Mumme? I don't know. Personally, I think it'd be worth the risk. So I want to hear your thoughts, Mountaineer Nation and Couz's Corner family. Do you think hiring somebody like Hal Mumme would be a good idea? Or would you rather see somebody like a Trickett, a Clint, or a Travis Trickett? Do you like the idea of hiring Seth Luttrell? Do you want to get completely away from the air raid offense? I know many of you do. I personally would kind of like to get away from it. I don't want to go all the way to a triple option necessarily, but I'd like to see like a spread RPO type offense like Rich Rod ran here at West Virginia. I think we've got the personnel to do that with Garrett Green, with Nico Marchiol, with the running backs we have. We could do that. It could be a run-first offense, but pass enough to keep defenses honest. And, heck, if you've got Nico back there, you can pass it even more. Those spread RPO systems can be run first, can be pass first. It can be whatever you need it to be. You scheme it up based on what personnel you have. And it would be exciting football again here in Morgantown. It would be explosive offense again at West Virginia. And it would be something that Mountaineer Nation could get behind and be proud of. So, with that being said, let me know, Couz's Corner family, what do you think? Do you think Graham Harrell leaving is a big deal, or do you not? I want to hear your thoughts on it. Don't forget, folks, if you want to support me here at Couz's Corner, you can check out my merch store by clicking one of the photos below of my merch items. It's right below the description box there. That'll take you right into my merch store. You can get you a hoodie, a T-shirt, a ball cap, a beanie, a coffee mug, a travel mug, a mouse pad, iPhone case. You can get a teddy bear for your kid. You can get a bandana for your dog. I mean, there's all kinds. There's baby clothes, women's clothes, kids' clothes, anything you want in my merch store. I've got several different designs to choose from. Go check it out. You can become a member of Couz's Corner by clicking the join button right below. Take advantage of some of the perks I have to offer. One of those perks is the Bowl Mania contest I have started for all channel members. It's only open to channel members. Bowl games start December 17th. That's tomorrow. So don't forget to get your entry in if you're a channel member. And if you want to become a channel member and get into this contest before these games start, you need to do that as soon as possible. You'll get early access to certain videos. The member shout-outs I just gave you, there'll be members-only live streams, things like that. You get merch discounts. So a lot of perks over at Couz's Corner channel membership. Don't forget to join today. I'd like to give a shout-out to my two newest channel members, Cody Cutright and Kenny Evans. I really appreciate your support. Thank you for joining Couz's Corner. I also want to give a shout-out to some old members, Michael Music, David Cummings, Outlaw of College Football with Jonathan Lewis, Leo Cole, Robert Borkert, Dennis Haiti, Luke Bart, Blue Hawk 71, FSU 45, Big Dan T, Timbo, Chris D, and H. Bar Farkle. Thank you all for your support here. And if you guys can't support me financially, I totally get it. I totally understand it. There's ways you can support me for absolutely free. There's 4 ways, actually. You can like the video by hitting that thumbs up button right below. You can share this with your friends. You can drop that comment below like I mentioned earlier. And last, you can subscribe to the channel. All of that is free. It all only takes a second to do. It's very easy, very quick. I really appreciate you tuning into this episode of Couz's Corner. And until the next one, Q Country Roads.